Yes, welcome back to YouTube Dive In. In today's video, we want to understand the implication of the 104% tariff increase that US has placed on China goods. You may think, oh, how does this concern me? But remember, where two elephants fight, the grass suffer. We may not be part of the two elephants that are fighting, but how do we understand what is happening so that we will position ourselves very well, not to suffer much? Believe it or not, US and China are two economic world giants today, US and China. So when both of them are fighting, it's either the grass will suffer or the grass will gain. Understand how the impact of these trade wars going on between these two countries, how it's going to affect you as an individual, wherever you are, in any part of the world. Believe it or not, it's going to trigger certain reactions and certain chain reactions all over the world. So let me hand you over to my host once again to look into this matter and bring out what you need to know from this situation. Thank you so much. Don't forget, this is where we bring you all the details of everything that is happening around that will affect you. Please subscribe to this channel, like the video, drop your comment in the comment section, and I'll see you again in my next video. Ciao!
Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going deep on something pretty huge. I mean, it's global commerce, right? The U.S. just enacted new tariffs on goods from China, and they are steep.
Yeah, steep's an understatement. We're talking 104% duty, like as of right now, just after midnight Eastern time.
This Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, for those keeping score at home. And this isn't just some tweak. You know, it's a big, big escalation.
Oh, absolutely. And this comes, not even a week after Beijing announced their own retaliatory tariffs. Like back and forth, things are getting tense fast.
Between the two biggest economies in the world, no less. And, watching the markets has been wild. First, there was this jump, right? Global markets up, like, hey, maybe this tariff thing is just to get to the negotiating table.
Hope springs eternal, right? But then, fragile hope, I guess. Soon as the official word dropped, boom, gains gone.
Vanished. Poof. So that's where we are. What we want to do today is unpack this for everyone. What does this move mean right now? Why they do it? And, crystal ball time, what might happen next?
Lots to get into. I'm ready when you are.
All right, so first things first. These tariffs. 104% duty, anything coming from China to the U.S. That's the headline. Like I said, kicked in just now, April 8th, 2025. But this isn't out of nowhere, right? This is part of something bigger.
You got it. This is core to what folks are calling President Trump's sweeping tariff plan. It's not just China either. Same time, all these country-specific tariffs are kicking in too, up to 50% on goods from a bunch of other countries.
So not a scalpel, more like a sledgehammer to global trade. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't put it like that, but yeah, it's definitely a major recalibration, let's say, of America's trade relationships.
All right, well, let's try to understand the why here. What's the White House saying? What's the rationale for this massive tariff hike?
Well, they're saying China made a mistake by retaliating. They see it as China basically doubling down on, what they see as unfair trade practices, taking advantage of American workers, that kind of thing. The narrative is about protecting American jobs and industries.
Right. There's this big push to bring key industries back to the U.S., isn't there? This idea of American self-reliance when it comes to essentials.
Exactly. They want the U.S. to be able to produce its own crucial stuff, like food, medicine, important minerals, all that. Less dependence on other countries. And ultimately, they want the U.S. to be a big exporter of all that stuff.
Sort of a Made in America 2.0, but on a global scale.
Yeah.
It's ambitious, that's for sure. And President Trump himself has been pretty vocal about all this, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah. He's been very clear about his stance. Spine of steel, he said. Not backing down. He seems convinced that China actually needs a trade deal with the U.S. It's a pretty strong position.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
But there's a catch to any potential negotiations.
Yeah.
Right? There's a very specific condition.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The White House is saying flat out China has to reach out first. The president said he'd be, quote, incredibly gracious, but the American people come first, end quote. So basically, the ball is in China's court, at least according to the administration.
So how has China reacted to all this? I mean, huge tariffs, a pretty tough stance from the U.S. What's their response been?
China's pushing back hard. They're saying they won't give in to what they called blackmail. They're vowing to fight to the end. Pretty strong words. Doesn't seem like they're going to pick up the phone anytime soon.
And, it doesn't sound like the U.S. is rushing to restart direct talks with China either, is it?
From what we're hearing, no, not really. Sources in the administration are saying they're not quote, prioritizing negotiations right now. It sounds like a bit of a stalemate when it comes to direct talks.
But China is taking action on the international stage, aren't they? They're taking a different approach.
Yeah, you're right. Even while they're, talking tough publicly, China's started dispute consultations with the WTO, the World Trade Organization. Remember, they mentioned that when we talked about the initial market reactions. This basically means they're formally challenging these tariffs through the international legal system. They're arguing that these tariffs break WTO rules.
Makes sense. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the economic fallout. What's happening out there? We saw those markets jump up, then quickly drop, especially in the U.S. What's the story there?
Right. Well, that initial jump, that was probably investors hoping these tariffs were just a tough tactic to force negotiations. But then, bam, 104% tariff is real. White House stands firm. Hope disappears. Stock prices in the U.S. dropped pretty fast because, well, uncertainty, right? Plus, importing stuff just got a lot more expensive.
Yeah, and it's more than just jitters, right? We're starting to see some revised economic predictions that take all this into account.
Oh, for sure. Citigroup, for example, they've lowered their 2025 GDP growth forecast for China, went from 4.7% down to 4.2%. They're blaming rising external risks, which, that's these trade tensions. This gives you an idea of the potential big picture impact this could have.
Or closer to home. What about the everyday person in the U.S.? What are they thinking, feeling about all this?
Well, there was a Reuters Ipsos poll, and it found that 3 out of 4 Americans, a big majority, think prices are going to rise because of these tariffs. Basically, people are expecting to pay more for stuff.
We've even got some real-world examples of how people are acting already. There was this story from New Jersey that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, this guy, Thomas Jennings, he's apparently buying double of everything, he said. Beans, canned goods, flour, you name it. This kind of stockpiling, it shows that the fear of higher prices and shortages is real. It's not just theoretical anymore.
People are getting ready, just in case. And it's not just people filling their pantries, right? Businesses are making moves, too.
Absolutely. We're seeing companies react in different ways. Micron, the chip maker, they're putting in a tariff-related surcharge starting Wednesday.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're passing the extra cost right on to their customers. Then you've got clothing retailers in the U.S. They're delaying orders, even holding off on hiring. They're being cautious, maybe even expecting things to slow down.
It's a domino effect, isn't it? And it's not even limited to things coming directly from China. Remember that example of the running shoes made in Vietnam? Shows how tangled up these global supply chains are.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect illustration. These tariffs, even if they're aimed at one country, they can impact prices everywhere. Those shoes, right now, they cost about $155, made in Vietnam. But there's a 46% tariff on Vietnamese goods, so those shoes, now they could cost $220. That's a big jump, and shoppers are going to feel it.
Speaking of feeling it, we did see some glimmers of stability in other markets amidst all this, didn't we?
Briefly, yeah. European shares rebounded a little, and oil prices stabilized globally after some big drops earlier. And like we mentioned before, Wall Street went up initially, but those gains were wiped out when the China tariffs were confirmed. It's still a really volatile situation, lots of ups and downs.
Okay, so China's been the focus, obviously, but the U.S. is also talking with other big trading partners, right? What can you tell us about that?
Right. They've got meetings set up with South Korea, Japan. Those are important allies. And the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, she's visiting next week. So they're definitely trying to, manage their relationships with other key players, especially with all these tariffs flying around.
But it's important to remember that the tariffs on those countries are still happening, right? These talks aren't about stopping them, are they?
Exactly. The White House has been very clear about that. The tariffs on those countries, up to 50%, they're still going ahead. It seems like the talks are more about, figuring things out in this new world of tariffs, maybe even making new trade deals.
And there seems to be a specific strategy from the White House on how to approach these talks, particularly with allies.
Yeah, Kevin Hassett, White House economic advisor, he said they've been told to, quote, prioritize our allies and our trading partners like Japan and Korea and others, end quote. Basically strengthen those relationships while, staying tough on China. Sounds like they're trying to shift things around in the world of trade, form new alliances maybe.
And we also heard that President Trump gave his trade team a rather unique assignment, didn't he?
Yeah, he's asked them to come up with tailor-made trade deals for almost 70 countries. That's a lot. These are the countries that have said they want to talk, so instead of big general agreements, it's going to be lots of individual deals. Ambitious, to say the least.
It does make you wonder how they're going to manage all that.
Yeah.
And the timeline for all this seems pretty open-ended, whereas these new tariffs are, here and now, aren't they?
That's the feeling, yeah. Jamison Greer, the lead trade negotiator, he told Congress they're working fast, but there's no deadline for these new deals. And he stressed that President Trump's not doing any exemptions or exceptions anytime soon. So, yeah, these tariffs, they're the reality for now.
So big picture time, what's the main worry with all these tariffs being thrown around?
The big concern is that all this is going to cause a recession and that it's, completely messing up decades of global trade rules. This is a huge change in how things work, and people are worried about what it'll do to the world economy and how fast it's all happened. That's worrying too.
Yeah, the speed is definitely something. And beyond the big economic stuff, businesses, especially those operating in China, they're having to really rethink how they do things, aren't they?
Oh, for sure. Manufacturers in China, they're talking about a war of attrition. They're getting ready for a long fight, basically. And they're looking at setting up factories in other countries to get around these tariffs. So this could end up changing global supply chains in a big way.
So to sum it all up, the U.S. has hit China with these huge 104% tariffs. They say it's because of China's retaliation and because they want to boost American manufacturing. China's not backing down, and we're already seeing the effects. Markets are jumpy, people are worried about prices going up.
Yeah.
And while all this is happening, the U.S. is also talking with other countries about trade, even though those tariffs are still in place.
Yeah, it's a really complex situation, constantly changing. Shows how connected everything is globally. What happens in one big country affects everyone.
Absolutely. And that brings us to something we want you to think about. The U.S. is saying China needs to start talking if they want negotiations. But China's saying they won't be pressured. So where do we go from here? What's the next step in this trade war? And even more importantly, what unexpected consequences might this have for the world economy? And for you, for your own wallet, it's worth considering.
It definitely is. Lots to keep an eye on.
Thanks for breaking it down for us today. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.
Anytime.
Until then, stay informed.